Good morning. Hey, Verl, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I coming in loud and clear? Oh, let's do it. Hey, Verl, can you hear me? Good morning. Hey, Verl, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I coming in loud and clear? Oh, let's do it. Hey, Verl, can you hear me? Good morning. Hey, Verl, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I coming in loud and clear? That is repeating for some reason. All right, let's do it. Keep going. All right, perfect. So you guys can't hear me? Fantastic. So I'm trying out new software today with this stream. So we'll see how. Hey, Verl, can you hear me? Oh, I just keep repeating. Good. How do I end that? Good morning. Hey, Verl, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I coming in loud and clear? That is repeating for some reason. All right, let's do it. Keep going. So you guys can't hear me? Fantastic. So I'm trying out new software today with this stream. So we'll see how. Hey, Verl, can you hear me? Oh, I just keep repeating. Good. Good morning. Hey, Verl, good morning. Oh, why is it doing that? Can you hear me? Am I coming in? Okay. All right, let's keep going. So you guys can't hear me? Fantastic. So I'm trying out new software today with this stream. So we'll see how. Hey, Verl, can you hear me? I just keep repeating. Good. Hey, Verl, good morning. What is it doing here? Okay. All right. Jeez, that is annoying. Okay. Maybe that fixed it. We will see. No, it sure didn't. Okay. Okay. So maybe that fixed it. We will see. No, it sure didn't. Okay. All right, let's try this. All right, let's try this. Okay, so it should only be running the mic audio. That may fix the problem. Just let me know if it's not working and I'll try something else. I really haven't played with this software enough to be 100% confident in how it works. But we are getting people in here, so we're going to go ahead and start at 8:10. We'll start moving through the PowerPoint. Oh, I think I figured it out. All right, can you hear me? Hello, good morning, Mia. Let's see, is it picking up audio? It's saying it is. All right, perfect. We're going to go with this, and this is how we will make it work. I ended up having to use some headphones with a mic to pick me up. Just go ahead and know, is the sound coming in clear for you guys now? Is it looping or is it just coming through? Okay, perfect. So I guess this is why people that stream wear video game headphones. It's so that they don't drive themselves crazy when their microphone picks up their speakers over and over again. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and let's get started. We got a few people in here. If they miss it, they'll have to catch up later. Thank you guys so much for being on. It's good to hear from all of you, Faith, Vicente, Mia, Talon, and I think Veryl's in here as well. So excited to hear you guys. Yes, Mia, you absolutely need to take some notes. We're going to start our PowerPoint. This will be live afterwards, so you can always come back in here and get the notes if need be. But let's go ahead and get started. So, the creation of culture, a study of classical Greece. So, ancient Greece is one of the most fascinating places in the ancient world. And its period of really being dominant doesn't start until we get into the creation of culture. So let's dive in. They create the culture that we celebrate and use today. And so we're really going to take a look into what that looks like. So I've broken down the periods of Greek history that we've studied or that we will be studying. And so there's 6 of them that we're really looking at. And that was the Mycenaean and Minoan period. Remember, that was the very beginning of ancient Greek history. And then the Hellenistic period, of course, was when people returned back to Greece and they started colonizing as well. And they really formed those city-states like Athens, like Sparta, like Thebes. This is when this happens. Then we see the Greco-Persian War, which we have started, and you guys will continue studying on your own. And then now we are talking about the classical period. Following this, we'll look at the Peloponnesian War, and then we'll talk specifically about Alexander the Great. So let's go ahead and we're going to dive on in. So we've covered 3 of those. We're covering 1 more today, and then we only have 2 more periods left in Greek history, so we should be out of Greece within the next week or 2. All right, let's check it out. So the classical period ran from 480 to 323 BC. And the classical Greek period is also known as the Golden Age. It was the height of Greek influence in the world. In other words, this period signifies the height of Greek military power, which led to massive jumps in all areas of academic study. Specifically, this is the time when they have established a very strong military. They've established the ability to take care of themselves. They're not afraid of being invaded constantly. You know, they just dealt with the largest army in the world. They just dealt with the most dangerous force that could be compiled against them, being the Persians. They're now the dominant superpower. They don't really know it, but they're now dominant. And that dominance gives them a period of peace where they're able to develop and build their own empire in the sense. They're really not going to colonize out or invade other countries. For the most part, they're going to stay around their city-states. They don't really care about anybody else. Remember, we talked about them looking at the rest of the world as being barbarians, and nothing says that more than this classical Greek period, where they'd rather just deal with their own politics, they'd rather just deal with their own problems on the Peloponnesus than really care about anywhere else in the world. Now, they're still going to continue to trade with places like Egypt. They're going to continue to trade with places like Rome. But for the most part, they could care less about any other empire. They could care less about any other city-state. They're really concerned with just what's going on in Greece during this time period. They don't care about anything else. I mean, and that's a great way to really look at this classical period, is it's introspective. They're looking at themselves. They're looking within inside. They want to develop. They want to grow. And they want to make a better country and a more advanced civilization. All right. Now, we for the most part, there was peace. Again, the city-states are still going to fight each other. It's ancient Greece. The city-states really don't like each other that much. They only put up with each other because they have the same gods and same language. But for the most part, if they could, we'd see the city-states fighting all the time. But here we go. Moving further in. So, it's really well known for its advancements. Advancements in things like philosophy. And we're going to start with philosophy. During this time, some of the greatest philosophers in the world began to write out their works. Men like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Socrates is known as the first moral philosopher. He used questions to find truths. So, you guys have all taken part in a Socratic debate. And when you did that, how did you debate? How did you propose your point in a Socratic debate? You can go ahead and fill that out in the live chat bar. Well, of course, you supported it with facts, but what else did you do? How else did you deliver your points? So the point of a Socratic debate, of course, is to deliver your points through asking questions. Socrates wants to find the truth of the matter, so whatever that may be. So what is the truth of a football? All right, you ask questions to determine what that truth is. So, is a football a strange shape? Well, yes, then this must be a football. Is a football typically brown? Well, yes, this ball is brown and it's oddly shaped. Then yes, it is a football. And so you ask questions to find what something is at its core. What is the true shape or being or purpose of an item? So what is the purpose of humanity? That was a very serious question that was asked by Socrates. He develops a form of saying, look, we can't just look at the world and say everything is correct. We have to ask these questions. We have to figure it out. We ask for questions about facts. You ask for questions about facts. So do these facts line up? If they do, then that is the true form, that is the truth, and that was the goal of Greek philosophy, especially under Socrates. And not only was it true, but is it good? So when we talk about moral philosophers, we're talking about what is good, moral between choices between right and wrong. What are good things and bad things? Morality, right? You guys all have to practice morality. Every time you put your fingers on the keyboard, you have to decide, am I typing something that is good and appropriate, or am I typing something that's inappropriate? Am I giving a truthful answer for the reason of giving a truthful answer, or am I giving an untruthful answer for the purpose of maybe deceiving someone else? Socrates asks these questions. What are we doing? And if we are doing it, is it okay morally? And is it okay that we do this at all? All right? That is the point of the Socratic debate, is to find out truth and make sure that truth is good. All right? Is it moral? Socrates would go on to teach a lot of different people. He, in fact, kind of created the first idea of a school. And he really influenced a guy named Plato. Now, Socrates is going to end up in proposing that the Greek gods were not good. In fact, he proposed there was another god. He proposed that there was a greater god, and that one divine being was morally good and would never do anything immoral. And for that, he ends up being killed. So he suggests that what the Greeks were saying was wrong. He suggests here's the real truth, that there is a God and he is moral. And for that, Socrates is put to death. In fact, they make him eat these poison berries. If you've seen the Hunger Games, you'll remember the end of the first Hunger Games, the game master had to eat the berries up in his up in that chamber. Pretty much exactly the same way Socrates was put to death. So if you've seen the Hunger Games, then you know it's pretty much exactly the same way Socrates was put to death. So a great example there. So Plato is Socrates' student, and he writes about Socrates. He in fact writes The Last Day of Socrates, which is a book about Socrates before his death. Socrates says, look, is this the law? It doesn't matter if I believe the law is good or bad. It is the law, and therefore, because it is the law, I will follow my purpose in the law. So if the law said I have to die, then I have to die. That was the way Socrates thought about it. That's the way he talked about it. That's the way he proposed it. So it may not be moral, it may not be correct, but it is the law right now. And as a moral person, I must follow the law. That was Socrates' idea, so that's why he accepted his death peacefully. Plato writes about that. Plato also would go on to write several other works. He developed an idea for a perfect moral society. He called that his republic. In the republic, he set up a system where everybody has a certain rank. You're either born into a peasant or a soldier or a philosopher, and you were in one of those three classes, and you had certain rules that you had to follow for those classes. The peasants and merchants, they had the most flexibility. They were allowed to marry pretty much whoever they wanted. They could participate in any job they really wanted to, as long as it was some kind of craft or manual labor. Soldiers had stricter rules. They had to be trained in school. And they had to train for several years, about 15 years, of which a lot of it was military training, but also a lot of it was philosophy and math and academia. And then finally there was the last group, and these were the philosophers. Funny enough, Plato's a philosopher, and he thinks philosophers should run the society. Plato creates a society where there's the philosophers. They're at the highest rank. They decide who gets to do what. They decide people's jobs. They administer tests. They're the teachers. They're the thinkers, and it's their job primarily to find the truth and everything. When I first read it, when I first heard about it when I was your age, I was like, this is just silly. Why would I want my leaders constantly thinking about the true form of things? And why would I want someone who spends their time with their head in the clouds thinking and deciding for me? And it's an interesting way of looking at it. Thank goodness for our sakes that never came into effect. But if you've ever seen the movie The Giver or read the book The Giver, that's the Plato society. That's the Platonic society. Everyone has a specific job. There's tests, there's training, there's school, and that determines where you go in life. Plato had a student that was very well known, and that was Aristotle. Aristotle was known not only for his achievements in philosophy, but he's also a fantastic scientist. He developed a lot of information on the scientific method. He absolutely was brilliant, and he ends up training one of the greatest leaders of all time, and that's Alexander the Great. So Aristotle was Alexander's teacher, mentor, and that was his job for a while, as well as developing philosophy and his own school. So both Plato and Aristotle created schools. Plato's school is known as the Academy. The Academy was a place where you could go and learn a lot more about the philosophical sciences, so mostly philosophy. And then Aristotle developed the Lyceum. The Lyceum and the Academy are like the first colleges. This is where people would go and they would learn. Aristotle was at the Academy for 20 years before he started his own school. So this is places you learn and you develop ideas, and these places were very, very important for the development of Greece. So I would definitely remember the Academy, and I definitely remember the Lyceum. All right, guys, so make sure you write that down. All right, this is Socrates. This is what we call the ponderer. He has his hand on his chin. He's thinking. It's a very formal pose that is copied over and over in lots of sculptures. So this is one of the founders of philosophy. This is Socrates. And this is Plato. He's seated in front of the Parthenon, which is a great place to have him. Over him is Athena, the goddess of wisdom. It's quite a reference to knowledge and understanding. And then finally, we have Aristotle. I think Aristotle is probably the one that looks most approachable. Again, the teacher of Alexander the Great, the man who would conquer the empire. He brought Aristotle along, and Aristotle copied down everything. So with this massive army came Aristotle and many of his students as they wrote down everything. One of the things they did write down was the classification of animals. So if you like studying animals or biology, you can thank Aristotle for that. He really started talking about how animals belong in special groups, and inside those groups there are families. So if you guys have gone through the genus, species, and going all the way through the scientific classification of animals, this is Aristotle. Yes, I know his eyes are wide open. That's because it's hard to carve a retina into a marble statue. All right. Advancements in medicine. Or advancements in science, sorry. Some of the advancements of science during this period, of course, was the development of the scientific method. This was developed so that people could understand different effects in nature, why these things happen. So the Greeks stopped saying, hey, look, the gods have decided that this happens because this happens. Instead, they started saying, well, there's got to be a force behind this in nature. There's got to be a reason that this happens in nature. So they started developing the scientific method to understand why things happen. So if an apple falls from a tree, why does that happen? Why is the apple falling down instead of up? That was the purpose of the scientific method, was trying to answer the questions. Why does the cart roll down the hill but not back up on its own? All right, so they used a scientific method to determine how things happen. They developed cartography, which is the practice of drawing maps and understanding the world. They developed medicine under people like Hippocrates. You've ever heard of the Hippocratic Oath, which says, I will do no ill or evil while I'm in the pursuit of healing somebody. So I'm not going to hurt somebody while I'm trying to heal them. The Hippocratic Oath developed from a man named Hippocrates. Hippocrates was a doctor, and we'll talk more about him in a second. They believed that the earth was round. Not only did they believe the earth was round, they believed the earth rotated around the sun and not the sun around the earth, which would come to be the common conception by the time we get 1,000 years down the road from here. Almost 2,000, about 1,000 years down the road, the world is going to believe that the earth is flat. And not only is it flat, but they also believe that the earth is revolving around the sun revolves around the earth and not the earth around the sun. The Greeks, though, in 400 BC are saying, Earth, not only is it round, but it revolves around an even larger object, and that's the sun. They also developed zoology, or the practice of labeling animals. And then they determined that the weight of an object is equal to the amount of water it displaces. So that seems kind of not that important. That may be one of the most important pieces, because they understood in shipbuilding, as long as your ship can displace the amount of water concurrent to its weight, it will float. So they understood what would float and what wouldn't float. That allowed them to build a lot larger ships, and they could sail farther. It was really a great advancement, a great leap forward, and it was developed by a guy named Archimedes. What he did is he took a bowl of water, and he would place things in it that he knew the weight of those things, and it would displace the water and push that water out. So we knew that water was just like a solid, and that it takes up space. So he understood that the space that water can take up can be moved depending on how much weight is added into it. All right, this is a picture of cartography. This is actually what the ancient Greeks thought the world looked like. It is rounded for a reason. Atlantica is rounded for a reason. They thought this is what the world looked like. Again, it's very shrunk. It's not even close to being correct, but it's all they knew. The Arabian Peninsula is pretty right on. Yeah, they did an all right job on this map. I'm actually pretty impressed with it. Greece and Italy aren't that close. They just didn't know spatial relationships. Greece isn't that large, but I think they tried to make it more prominent on the map. It was a good try for sure of what the Earth possibly looked like. There's some pretty big islands out there next to Italy that aren't there, but it isn't a bad representation. It's what they knew of their world. So if you ever want to know what the ancient world looked like, this map is a great representation of what the Greeks, what the Romans thought the world looked like. This is the world they understood. And most of it centered around the Mediterranean Ocean, and that is Mir Inter or the Middle Sea. All right, this is Hippocrates. Hippocrates is the father of Western medicine. Hippocrates can be seen here holding a stick, and there is actually a snake wrapping around the stick. All right, that is a sign of the god of healing in ancient Greek philosophy. So Hippocrates actually plays a pretty important role in developing the medicine that we use today, especially the medicine we use today in order to fight pandemics. They really didn't understand diseases back then. They didn't understand why people got sick. And so Hippocrates sought out to find out why people got sick, how sickness spread, and how to treat sickness when it developed. So he is very instrumental in developing a way to treat illnesses. Advancements in math. Yeah, I know, guys. Your favorite subject, math. The Greeks actually really advanced math, especially in the areas of geometry. The Pythagorean theorem was used to understand the distance of a side of a right triangle. So what the theory states is if you understand the length of two sides of the triangle, you'll be able to understand the length of the third side of the triangle. We'll go over that in a minute. But basically, the Greeks were able to determine how far something was as long as they knew the length of two sides, they could figure out how long something was. So pretty good advancement in math right there. They also understood geometry. In fact, the Greeks predicted the circumference of the Earth within a few feet of its actual circumference. So the Greeks had to guess how big they thought the Earth was. They used a formula to find the circumference of it. Yes, that involved using the symbol pi. That is a Greek symbol. The Persians had said that pi equaled 3. As we know, that is not correct. I'd like to see someone type in the first, let's say, 4 digits of pi. You can type that into the chat bar. What's the first 4 digits of pi? There's 3. That's 3 digits. What's pi? All right, we're getting there. We're getting there, guys. We still have 3 digits. There we go, 3.141, and then you could also go 59. Yep, very good, 3.141. That's the first 4 digits of pi. All right, so they understood that circumference wasn't just 3. They didn't carry it out super far, but they understood with some accuracy what pi was. Then we have Thales and Ulysses and Archimedes. All 3 of these guys made major contributions, and what you're learning in math, all right, what you will learn in geometry was taught by these guys, by Thales and Euclid and Archimedes. What you're learning was what these guys developed, and so it's quite an achievement. Really, if you think about it, that's over 1,000 years ago. That's actually over 2,000 years ago. And what they did, what they said, what they theorized is still relevant to you today. All right? It's still things that you are going to learn as you progress in schooling. So they're quite genius and made an incredible impact on the world we live in today. All right, this is the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. All right, if we know the side, we know a and b. If we know the length of a and b, we can guess the hypotenuse. All right, when we talk about a triangle, we talk about how it has legs. A is a leg, B is a leg, and C is the hypotenuse. If we know what the length of the 2 legs are, we can get the length of the hypotenuse, or correspondingly, if we know the length of the hypotenuse, we can figure out, in a leg, we can figure out the distance of the other leg. So it's quite a powerful theory that was developed by Pythagoras. Hey guys, real quick, we're not playing around in the chat bar. You guys understand me? Thank you. All right. So they also developed tools for geometrical use. This, of course, was used to measure angles. All right. This was a very early protractor used to measure angles. It is kind of a cool picture, but I really like looking at that. All right, so now let's talk about the arts. The Greeks developed a love for the arts. They developed dramas, both tragedy and comedy. They used paintings to tell their stories from their religion as well as the common day-to-day life. They made incredible sculptures that originated in their religion but soon came to focus on the realistic. So Greek art really, at its foundation, was a focus on the idealistic. So, what is the ideal form of a person? What is the best form of a person? What are they supposed to look like? And why are they supposed to look like that? So that's originally the purpose of Greek art. They wanted to imitate the gods, or they wanted to draw the gods. That's going to change quite extensively throughout the classical period. Instead of focusing on what the gods look like or the ideal picture of a god, they want to focus on what is more realistic. What is it more likely to look like? What is the human experience like? Are we always perfect, or are we broken? Do we have problems with us? Are we flawed? Do we have emotion? So showing those emotions of sadness, of joy, of thought, of introspection, that was the purpose of classical Greek art. It was to change the way we looked at the world, and it's really evident in some of their pieces. Of course, this is one of the greatest theaters outside of Athens, quite a beautiful, beautiful theater where Greek plays took place. They would use just that forefront and the backstage. Really had no purpose other than housing the theater's props, things like that. The 4 stages where all the acting took place. It's actually really well made. If you're standing in that center point and you even whisper, it vibrates all around the amphitheater, so everyone can hear it. So it's designed acoustically to where you're talking, you can be heard everywhere. We have several things like this in the United States where they're designed to pick up the speaker very clearly. It echoes and it sends it out, so it sounds like even when they're whispering on the stage, even the person as far back as they could be can hear it. This is called the discus thrower. Again, another incredible piece of sculpture. And then, of course, we have earlier pieces of Greek art that demonstrate the importance of focusing on the gods. And then we see that more realistic paintings later on. All right, and finally we're going to talk about architecture. The Greeks developed the classical architecture that we see in the world today. They focused on the use of polished marble and the construction of buildings like the Parthenon and some of their homes, and they used columns to allow for natural light and airflow, as well as providing incredible support for their structures. So architecture really changed the way that we see the Greeks, and it definitely influenced the world we live in today. Many of our government buildings are built in the classical Greek architecture. If we look at buildings like the U.S. Capitol, it really is influenced still by those ideas of Greek architecture. You can even see it in modern buildings around town. You can see that focus on that Greek architecture, and I'll show you how. I actually am going to give you guys an assignment. All right, so these are 3 columns. This is the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. Each of these columns has a specific design piece into it. The Doric is very plain column. It has somewhat of the indents going up the side. The top of it is how we distinguish what type of column it is. So we're looking at the very top of our column. If it has a very plain top, that is a Doric column. So if you're looking at the very top of the column and there's really no design, that's Doric. Now moving over to Ionic, you can see they have like a curlicue. That is an Ionic column. The Ionic columns always have that curl, and that represents the Ionic column. And then finally, we have the Corinthian column, which has the very elaborate design in the column's makeup. So, what you guys, I would love for you to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of a quiz on Thursday. I really want you to study the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. What I would like for you to do is really take a look at those, make sure you understand the difference between the 3, and in that quiz, I'm going to give you pictures, and you're going to have to guess which column is which. So if it's a Doric, Ionic, or Corinthian. It's a pretty fun thing. I still remember learning that in 6th grade, and we actually went on a scavenger hunt to see if we could find those things in modern day life. And I'll tell you guys, they're everywhere. All right, and then finally we have the Parthenon. Now, the Parthenon is one of the greatest of all the Greek architectural pieces still around. It was made out of polished marble. It is quite a stunning building. What I'd like to see is if someone could tell me what type of columns make up the support structure in the Parthenon. Yeah, so yes, absolutely. They use Doric in most of the places, but it includes Ionic as well. So the Parthenon is made up of both Doric and Ionic columns. The main columns that run along the sides are of the Doric style, so they're very plain. So we look from that corner and we go left. Those are all Doric, so very good there. And then, Gavin, you're absolutely correct. Ionic would be that corner column. That is an Ionic column. So they had 4 true Ionic columns in the Parthenon, and then the rest are the Doric columns. So very well done, guys. It's one of the cool things that you're going to be able to point out to your parents when you drive past a bank or a church, and you can say, hey, look, that's a Corinthian column, that's Ionic column, that's a Doric column. It's a cool skill to have. All right, so that is going to be it, guys. Thank you for paying attention and coming out and checking out this information. I hope the stream worked well for you. It worked in a pinch. I'd rather do the film myself on the YouTube video like I did, film myself on the PowerPoint video like we did last time. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. All right, seeing that I don't have any questions right just yet, guys, on YouTube I'm going to post a video. You're also going to see this on your team channels. I have a video for a project that you are going to be completing for me on the Greco-Persian War. Make sure you check that out. If you have any questions about that, I'm going to be going live for the next about hour. About 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, that is a great time to go ahead and get a hold of me. I will catch up with you guys later. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back on at 1 and to 2 to make sure I get with you guys. All right? So if you have any questions, check that out. I'm going to be on again. I got to turn this off, and I'm going to go on live, and then I'll be back from 1 to 2. So make sure you check out the video that goes up on YouTube. It's going to go up very soon. If you want to stay up to date on my YouTube, make sure you subscribe. That's the best way to stay up to date. And check it out. All right, guys. I will catch up with you later. Have a good one. Bye. Hey, Talon. You can actually go online and just type in Doric columns, and you'll actually find that same chart that I used for the Doric, Ionian, and Corinthian columns. So make sure you check that out then. All right, guys. If you have any questions, I'll be on here in a few minutes, and then you can check back with me between 1 and 2. Have a great day.